Hi. Some years, I wonder why I continue to do the Review Week of Awesome, because as much as I do enjoy doing it, as much as I enjoy making 5 videos in 1 week for you guys, eventually, this might kill me. But it is all in service for you guys. Back earlier this year, and by earlier this year, I mean only like a month and a half or 2 months ago, I put out a list of 50 shows. I asked you to vote on these 50 shows, and the top 5 results became the Review Week of Awesome last week. Or whenever this video goes up. I'm gonna take a break. I've been editing for a while. And as I like to do when I do these surveys, I wanted to quickly go over the 50 shows that were on the list and how much you guys voted for them. I feel like that's a cool thing to do. Some people like to watch it, so that's what we're gonna do. This year was actually kind of interesting because I did it all on Google Forms. Previous years, I had a separate survey software on the internet that allowed me to take in a bunch of responses, but they became a paid service that I could not justify affording because most survey softwares now on the internet want a yearly subscription where you pay for the entire year up front, and since I only need it like once a year, that doesn't make sense for me. So Google Forms was interesting because I don't think that Google Forms was necessarily designed for this many responses. So looking at the results page for the survey that I put out, it crashed my browser, my phone, multiple times throughout the course of doing this, but thankfully I was able to get it to stay up long enough to copy everything down to a separate document, which I now have in front of me, thankfully. So we're gonna go through all of the 50. We're gonna briefly discuss them if there is anything that needs to be discussed, and we're gonna say how many votes that were there. We're gonna start with the lowest voted on and make our way upwards. We're gonna start with the 50th, the one least voted, but still got 475 people willing to say they would watch a video on it, and that was Moyashimon Tales of Agriculture. This one got added to the list because it was kind of one of those weird wild cards. It had been recommended to me a number of times, and I added it to the list thinking, well, hey, it maybe if there's like some secret culture of people that really stan this show, I can learn about it if that happens to be the case. Turns out no, but never know. Might be something to touch on in the future, but it got beat out with 538 votes for Nia Under 7. Nia Under 7 is this show right here that has been sitting on my shelf for a long time. Nia Under 7 is this weird slice of life show. Before slice of life really became popular, it was made by the team that did Serial Experiments Lain, immediately following Serial Experiments Lain as kind of this nice, relaxing thing for the staff to try and recover from making Serial Experiments Lain. I can't necessarily ever say that Nia Under 7 is necessarily good, but it is interesting, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, but, you know, only some people agree with that. Moving on with 551 votes was Toward the Terra, another series that has been like on my radar for a bunch of years because it's been all around for about that long, and I was interested in it, so I got tossed on the list, which just happens to be a lot of things on this list, as you might discover as we go, including with 800, we jumped from 5 to 825 votes, Kaleido Star, and that's a show that I actually own. I don't think, no, it's not on this shelf, it's on my shelf back home. I actually own it, but I've never watched it. There are quite a few anime that are like that I own them, but haven't watched them. There are some anime that I've owned for 8 or 9 years on DVD that I've never watched. I might want to get around to doing that at some point. Next, for 836 votes. 836 votes was Ungo. Ungo was an anime that came out early 2010s? Something like that. It was a Bones show that got popped up and then just kind of disappeared, and I never saw anybody talk about it after that particular season, and I wanted to go back to that time and figure out exactly why nobody talked about it, because it was a Bones show, and usually Bones shows are pretty high up on people's lists, gets mentioned around a lot, but this one did not, so I wanted to know why, but apparently nobody agreed, maybe because it's crap? I don't know. We'll find out at some point in my life, I'm sure. But next, with 1,000, ooh, we've broken the 1,000 barrier. 1,033 votes went to the Tower of Duraga, or Dururga. Can't pronounce fantasy stuff worth a damn. I can't pronounce a lot of things worth a damn, so welcome to my life. Tower of Druaga was another series that is like, it fell into that zone of here are a bunch of fantasy anime at a time where it almost felt like people didn't really care about fantasy anime, which is an interesting time to be released, I think. So that kind of got sidelined by a lot of other things that came out in its similar years. But from the people that I have spoken to who have actually watched it, they enjoyed it quite a bit. So the one after that, at 1,384, was Macross Delta, because I've never talked about Macross on my channel, so I tried to figure out exactly what else. I didn't put any other Macross on the list that got higher voted, did I? No, I put Macross Delta in there, and I can't entirely remember the reason why I chose Delta. I think, because the Macross that I like the most is Macross Frontier. I think I put Delta in because I think it's the most recent Macross? I could be wrong on that, but I felt like it was pretty recent. And hey, there were a lot of things Macross like that I wouldn't mind talking about, so I was like, well, hey, let's put a Macross on the list. So that's what we ended up going with, even though a lot of people did not seem to agree. At 1,503 votes was The Rose of Versailles. The Rose of Versailles is a show that keeps popping up in kind of weird historical fantasy type settings and historical fantasy type lists that I've seen. It's one of those shows that the people that have watched it stan it pretty hard, so I wanted to see what the hubbub was about. So that got added to the list. 1,506 votes got us to Patama Inverted, which I'm pretty sure is a fairly recent anime film, if I'm remembering correctly, that I saw got passed around a bunch. And as how most of this list is not devised. No, devised probably works. How I make most of this list is a bunch of things that I keep hearing about that I feel like, well, maybe people are interested in it. So let's toss it on the list and see what happens. So that's why that one ended up being there. The next one at 1,600 was 12 Kingdoms, which is a show that I just wanted to talk about. I mentioned it in the video talking about basically fantasy anime. Around the time the Game of Thrones ended, I did a video on anime to watch if you were disappointed by Game of Thrones, and 12 Kingdoms was one of them. And then I noticed in the comments for that video that there were a lot of people that are like, holy shit, someone's talking about 12 Kingdoms. And I'm like, I know, right? Because nobody talks about 12 Kingdoms. So I wanted to talk about 12 Kingdoms. At least 1,600 of you agree, so that's pretty cool. But going on from that, 1,639 reviews Starlight. Now that was one of the shows from 2018? 2018, that a bunch of people I follow on Twitter talked about it endlessly, but I did not end up watching it, which apparently is a travesty. So I wanted to rectify that by watching it and having an excuse to watch it for the review of Awesome. Didn't happen, so I'm gonna have to do that at some other point in time. Maybe we'll make a video about it, maybe we won't. Who knows? We'll figure it out. 1,682, Read or Die. Now, I didn't actually specify. I don't think I necessarily specified in the list what this was, so maybe that's why I didn't get as high votes, or maybe I'm just really disappointed. At one point in time, a bunch of years ago, I did a review on... I don't think I actually have the OVA series. Read or Die was originally an OVA series that got really popular, and I did a review on that, but then it came out as a TV series, which I do have here, Read or Die the TV, and I've wanted an excuse to talk about Read or Die TV for a bunch of years, a long time, but I guess nobody cares, or at least not enough people care. Not enough to overcome the votes. So maybe I should point out at this point that we are about to talk about a show that got 1,768 votes, but the highest voted show was at 9,790, which, you know, we'll get to. So this is the discrepancy in votes between some of these entries. So the 1,768, that was for Kino no Tabi, The Beautiful World. That is Kino's Journey, the new one. I did a video on the old Kino a bunch of years back, so this was a proper video on the new Kino that I wanted to fully talk about and fully develop my thoughts on. Because I did an FR on new Kino when it was coming out, when it was airing, but I hadn't touched it since, and there were a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, so we'll find out what's going on later. 1,799, Run with the Wind. This is a show that gets added to the list because, again, a lot of people talked about it. I didn't watch it, wanted to know what the hubbub was about. 1,863 votes went to Space Brothers. I have recommended Space Brothers for a long freaking time. The worst thing that I can say about it is its length, and it's not that I don't think it deserves its length, because it does, but it is still a commitment, which is why it's hard to recommend. But at the same time, I will I will stand behind Space Brothers and tell people to watch it if they have the time, and I will continue to do that for a very, very long time. I have a panel that I've been doing at a number of cons now where I talk about hidden anime gems, and Space Brothers has been on it pretty much since its inception, and will probably remain so until I get a feeling that a lot more people watch it. 2,139 votes went to the film Punchline. Punchline is a film that got passed around in my circles quite a bit, and because a lot of the staff involved in Studio Mappa and a bunch of other things, and it was a film, so I also put some films on this list with the hope that if a film made it into the top 5, it would make some of my life easier, because instead of having to sit down and watch a 12 or 24 or even more episode series, I could bypass that by just spending an afternoon and watching a film. No film made it into the top 5 this year, unlike last year. Last year I had Your Name, which really cut my time very nicely as far as that was concerned. 2,272 votes went to Bento, which is a weird comedy anime, I believe. I haven't watched it, but again, a lot of these things I haven't watched, and it is just my excuse to actually see them. Bento got 2,272, and 2,441 votes went to Gunslinger Girl. Gunslinger Girl, ooh, I wanted an excuse to finish that. I tried starting to watch it a number of years ago. It's an older series, it has 2 seasons, and there were a lot of elements to it that I found intriguing. I just haven't had the time to go back to it, so I wanted to. 2,673 went to Princess Principal from a couple of years back. That's another show that, like, I was able to watch a couple episodes, did a couple episodes for, I did an FR on it, and I loved the world, I loved the setting, I loved the aesthetic, and I just wanted to watch more, and then for whatever reason, I never went back to it, which is depressing. 2,681 votes went to Nana. Nana is kind of this weird cult classic anime that if people have seen it, they will stan it, and I am one of those people, and I would love for the excuse to make a video on Nana and not have to worry too much about whether or not everyone is going to watch it. It's depressing. 2,804 votes went to Chihaya Furu. Now, season 3 of Chihaya Furu just came out and has been airing over this past season, and it's been a number of years since season 2, so thankfully I knew it was popular enough to come back, at least in Japan, but it's hard to recommend Chihaya Furu in North American circles because, you know, we don't play Karuta, and it's hard to explain what Karuta is to people. But please watch Chihaya Furu. It's worth your time, I promise you. 2,858 votes went to Black Butler, Book of Murder. I haven't touched Black Butler for a very long time. Me and Black Butler have an interesting history because it was the first video I ever did. My first video ever was on Black Butler. My 1-year anniversary of making videos was a redo of that video. My 2nd-year anniversary was talking about season 2 and how much I hated it. And I haven't really talked about Black Butler since, and that was like 8 or 9 years ago. So this would have been my excuse to talk about Black Butler again, which I probably should get around to do anyway. We'll see. We'll see. 2,875 went to the Tatami Galaxy. Tatami Galaxy, again, is another one of those shows where it's like, I really feel like I need a proper excuse, otherwise people aren't going to care. But anybody that has watched the Tatami Galaxy, please, you have to agree with me. This is something that other people need to watch. It's just hard to recommend. It's just hard to recommend. But if you've seen the film Life is Short, Walk On Girl, it's basically the same universe by the same director and basically same everything, though Life is Short, Walk On Girl is a film that doesn't necessarily need the Tatami Galaxy in order to watch and understand. So if me just telling you to go watch the Tatami Galaxy is not enough to make you go do it, go and watch the film Life is Short, Walk On Girl, and if you like that, then go watch Tatami Galaxy. So it's a lot less of a time investment. So hey, go do that. 2,991 votes went to Ghost in the Shell Arise. I have watched part 1 of Arise. I own all of it. This is another one of those anime that I bought all of it because Ghost in the Shell is like one of my favorite anime franchises ever. But I haven't sat down to watch Arise. I watched part 1 of Arise when it came out and I did an FR on it, but that was like 7 or 8 years ago, and I haven't touched it since. So it's fairly well known for not being great, but you know, I wanted to watch it and make my own opinion on it, and maybe we'll talk about that as more cyberpunk related stuff comes out. Come the spring, as a bunch of video gamers are getting real hyped for Cyberpunk 2077, including myself, so maybe that type of content will do a little bit better. Then 3,127 goes to Boogie Pop Phantom. Now, on the list, I actually put both. I put 2000, which was the original adaptation of Boogie Pop Phantom, and I put 2019, which is the new Boogie Pop Phantom that just came out. And I meant that to put that out there so I would watch both of them and either do a comparison piece or talking about piece, because the new one is like a readaptation of the material that the old one covered, just, you know, 19 years later and with better animation. But Boogie Pop Phantom, and I've mentioned this in a couple of different places, Boogie Pop Phantom and me have a history in that it's an anime that I have tried to watch, probably more so than almost any other anime ever, except for maybe like the Galaxy Railways. And I've just never succeeded with it. I've always given up at some point before getting into it. So I've really wanted an excuse to actually finish it because I keep hearing that there is a really good show somewhere in there. So I need to try and find it. And I want to try and find it, but I just haven't. 3,145 goes to The Vision of Escaflowne. I haven't talked about Escaflowne at all, despite being one of my... Escaflowne is right here, the film. Vision of Escaflowne is not on this shelf, I don't think. But the actual film of Escaflowne is there, and that was one of those cornerstone anime franchises that really helped get me into anime when I was in high school. So I've always kind of really wanted an excuse to talk about it for a bit, but nah. I'm sure one day I will get an excuse, and then that will happen. 3,304 went to Legend of the Legendary Heroes, because it is not Legend of the Galactic Heroes at all, but it just has a very similar name, and some people are getting confused by that. Maybe that's why people voted for it. Not sure, but I wanted to make a video to talk about it, and that just didn't happen. 3,403 went to Ergo Proxy, which I put in brackets second look. Not because, and okay, maybe not because my first look was wrong, but because my first look doesn't exist anywhere. Ergo Proxy, I did a video on Ergo Proxy a number of years ago. It's not online anymore because the video itself can't be uploaded to YouTube. It'll get taken down due to copyright concerns because of how I edited videos back in the day. And I can't rejig it like I have some of my older videos because that was a particular video of mine where I don't have the project files anymore. I have the project files for virtually every video I have ever made, if I was the one that edited it. And this particular case, just through a misclick, through a mistiming of things, I don't have the original. I think it was a Premiere project. I don't have the original project anymore because I used to use templates, and I used to copy templates over, and then I just overwrote it at one point in time when I did the video following it, and then that got wiped. All of the actual files are there, so I could potentially take an afternoon with the final render and then just compare it to all of the other files and hopefully kind of line it up together. But at that point, I was just like, no, I might as well just make a new video. So that was what it was here. It was me talking about Ergo Proxy because a lot of people want to know my thoughts on it, because apparently the video with my thoughts on it doesn't exist anywhere online anymore. We might get to that at some point. 3,582, Gantz. Gantz is one of those action shows that really people should watch if they like action shows. And if they don't, well, I can't help you, unfortunately. But hey, maybe if you like mecha instead, for 3,813 votes was Gundam I Am Blood and Orphans. Normally I put some Gundam on this list. Normally I talk about at least one Gundam a year. That has actually been... This is, I think 2019 is the first year I haven't done a video on a Gundam in a while. And I probably should have done something, but I got... normally my time of doing that is like later in the year. Like I did Gundam 00 last fall, I think. And then that just ended up not happening this year because I got married and didn't have time to do extra videos in the fall like I would have wanted to normally. So we didn't get the chance to talk about that, unfortunately. 4,220 votes went to Kokoro Connect, which is an interesting little drama series that I haven't got around to finishing because I watched it when it was airing. Or I watched the first couple of videos when it was airing, and it's about a bunch of high school students that continually swap bodies with one another, which is interesting because they're about 50-50 split on the gender spectrum. So that's just fun, hilarious comedy that I wanted to explore and see how they tackled that. But for 4,281 votes went to Aldnoah Zero. Ooh, that would have been fun. I don't actually know if that would have been fun, but I'd like to think. 4,473 went to another film and that went to Castle in the Sky, Laputa, the Miyazaki film. I was worried about putting that on the list because historically doing anything Ghibli on YouTube has always been a big no-no. For a long time, Ghibli was heavily protected on YouTube by Disney, as it was. However, Disney doesn't necessarily own the theatrical rights anymore to it, so while they won't go after you, Ghibli proper, however, has been known to as of late. So I was kind of worried about putting that on the list, but at the same time, I've never been able to talk about Ghibli at all on any of my videos. I think I sneaked it by on one, like, kind of top list video. I had Laputa or something, and that went through, thankfully, but, like, normally it doesn't pan out. So I was worried about putting it on the list, but I wanted to try it and see how it goes. And Laputa is one of my favorite Miyazaki films, so I really wanted to talk about that. 4,888 went to Yona of the Dawn. This is another one of those shows that I heard a lot about, and now we've actually started to get into the space, because Yona of the Dawn was number 17. We're starting to get into, like, not only just the second half of more votes, but we're getting closer and closer to the higher and higher votes. So a lot of people are very interested in Yona of Dawn, and I wouldn't mind of talking about that. 4,896 went to Great Teacher Onizuka, and I am very happy that this is this high up, because I talk about Great Teacher Onizuka anytime it is relevant, and I'm happy that more people want me to actually talk about it and tackle it in a video proper, which I might do now that we're at that point, because I think I brought it up when we talked about Assassination Classroom during the review of Awesome. I brought up GTO, and I'm pretty sure at some other point recently in the year I brought up GTO. I'm trying to remember where. Anime that makes you feel good, I think? Anime that just, like, something to relax to when life gets you down. I think I put in GTO as well, because that was a good series to talk about. 5,297 went to Carol and Tuesday, which I'm surprised is that high, considering I didn't think that as many people were watching it, because it's a Netflix release from this past year. But that's pretty good, and it's a really great, amazing series, and if you have it on Netflix and you have the ability to watch it, please go do so. 5,370, ooh, I was worried when I put this on the list. Haikyuu! There are certain people on my list where if I tweeted out, hey, I'm watching Haikyuu, I'd have a bunch of people scream at me being like, God damn, finally. So I put that on in here to finally cover that series, because I haven't touched it at all, and that is a travesty to some people I know. 5,474, March Comes In Like a Lion, or, in other words, the one Akiyuki Shinbo anime that I might actually like. That's one that I saw, like, 1 or 2 episodes of, got really interested in, and then put it aside because that was when it was airing, and I wanted to watch it when it finished, and now that it has the second season now, I'm pretty sure, I just haven't had the time to go back to, but we're gonna tackle that at some point. 5,902 votes went to The Seven Deadly Sins, OVA in Season 2. I actually expected this to be in the top 5, because when I put the original season of Seven Deadly Sins in the voting list, like 3 years ago, it was number 1. It was the most voted thing for that year, so I actually thought that me talking about the OVA in Season 2 was going to get in the top 5. Apparently not. It only made it as far as 12, so okay. And then above that, at 6,102, was Naoki Urasawa's Monster. We'll get to Monster eventually, guys, I swear. I might just freaking do it. I might just freaking do it. 6,126 votes. At number 10 was Recreators, a series which I think got a lot more flack than it really should have. It was a weird reverse isekai show that I really enjoyed for what it was. It was a nice popcorn anime, and I liked it, and I wouldn't mind talking about it. Oh! 6,192 votes went to Princess Mononoke. I actually put 2 Ghibli films on this list, and it made it to number 9 at least. Like, it and Laputa are tied for my favorite, pretty much. I know when I said Laputa, and I put it on this list, and I said that was my favorite, but really it is tied between Laputa and Princess Mononoke. It really is. And then Kiki just barely under that. Just barely under that. At 6,220 was the Saga of Tanya the Evil film. That one was one of the ones at number 8 where I was like, if you were just a little bit higher, you could have saved me time and not actually have to sit down and watch a very long series. I could have just watched the movie. And, you know, I'm going to end up watching it anyway. I'm surprised I haven't, because I really like Tanya. It's just, I just haven't got the time to sit down and watch it. 6,828 votes at number 7 went to Fruits Basket of 2019. I'm very sad I didn't get to talk about that in the review week of Awesome, but for reasons that may or may not be made apparent depending on when particular videos go out. I will be talking about that again quite soon, maybe in January. We'll see when I have the time. 7,325 was Devilman Crybaby, right at the edge. We are now at the edge and the borderline. You know everything else that was on the list because it made it into the week, not the leak. But Devilman Crybaby was, for a lot of people, the best anime of 2018, and I never talked about it because I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that, to me, it wasn't as good as a lot of the people I talked to. I talked to a lot of people that are just like, this is the greatest thing ever since sliced bread or what have you, and I'm like, it's all right, I guess. So I'm almost happy that didn't make it in because I don't know what kind of hate I would have gotten for that. But now we're into the review week proper. We had Ruby that got 7,410, Bakemonogatari, which had 8,004. Bunny Rascal Does Not Dream of Burner Girl Senpai had 8,280, and now the top two, which was Castlevania, the Netflix version, had 8,828, and then almost a full 1,000 over that at 9,790 was Assassination Classroom. So that was everything that got voted on in the Review Week of Awesome for 2019. We'll see if I decide that I want to risk doing this again in 2020. We'll see how we feel. It'll be weird to break tradition if I decide not to do it, but at the same time, this is a lot of work, and I'm getting, oof. December's a rough, man. December's a real rough. But I know that there's going to be a part of me. Last year was supposed to be a year that I didn't do it. And then I decided to buckle down in like a week and a half. Last year's Review Week of Awesome, I pretty much threw together in 2 weeks. I did 5 videos in 2 weeks, and that was a horrible idea. But the videos actually turned out really, really good. I was really happy with last year's Review Week of Awesome. But it just happened to be really rushed, and so we'll see how that turns out for 2020, whether or not I decide at the very beginning to do it and everything is nice and planned, or if I decide to rush it at the end and hurt myself even more just so I can keep up with the tradition. So we'll see how that goes, and if that happens to be the case, I will see you then. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, watch more anime, watch a lot more anime, and stay frosty.